Enter the life of a terracotta codfish, a 30-second animation about an orangey-brown codfish swimming in the sea until it decides to swim up to the surface after seeing the light to find itself on an island on top of the sand, next to the dark dystopian forest with many strange famous characters that the fish must endure. I was inspired by Pixar's Finding Nemo, which led me to not only draw concept drawings in my commonplace sketchbook, along with the original beta storyboard on what the short could have been about, but to also collect real-life objects, the rocks, the twigs, and dry leaves, with green fabric seaweed for extra because the green tissue paper was too terrible to be used as real natural effects to create my little small animated world that has the forces of nature in it with a loose narrative, which I've learned those techniques from Jan Schwankmeyer with real-life objects and surrealism, Terry Gilliam for collage animation for Monty Python's Flying Circus and its films, and Trey Parker and Matt Stone for the color card paper cutout animation, with the latters being top-down animators. And just like Trey Parker, I was unsure what to think of. If I investigate in my commonplace sketchbook again, I've drawn the only character concept drawings with the first page having a variety of paint to match the complementary color with the blue background, which led me to use the useful color wheel to find out the answer. This really helped me to understand why color in film is important, as it sets the mood and tone. After multiple clues on what color would create an engaging atmosphere, I found that the orange color would go with the blue background, but then I decided to go mix that with a tiny bit of brown to create a terracotta pot color. Then I colored the designed fish, which turned out to be simple at first, which led me to think that I could have done more design choices, but I've also done a variety of colors of which fish would best fit for the film. If I designed more drawings for different fish, I would design more characters for concept art in my commonplace sketchbook, rather than just 3 characters, which the other 2 that didn't make it into the final cut. After careful consideration, I've chosen the approved rough draft of a terracotta color for the fish, naming it the Terracotta Fish, which was the first name, but I've gone with the Terracotta Codfish instead, which then led me to the storyboard draft on what the film would feature, all the way to making an animatic on how the animation would play for 30 seconds. After careful planning on what I want to create, I finally got an idea on how I would start. I've booked myself for a laser cutting session immediately for the following week after I've designed my fish on Adobe Illustrator. Then after putting a few different sizes to use replacement techniques, I've estimated the time and pressed the big button. I found the process straightforward as it took a long time to let the laser cut in different parts, such as red for cutting, blue for line engraving, and black for raster engraving. I've also cut out the eyes and fins for the fish. Admittedly though, I had to pay £2.45 of 3mm of MDF wood. After laser cutting, I've painted the different sizes of 3mm wood of the fish, terracotta, so I would make them look like they were made from pottery or clay. After also collecting color card papers for the background, I've booked myself a bay to use dragon frame, as I was careful with the black plug socket, the orange cable, and the priceless HD camera. Before starting, I've calculated how many frames would my animation take under 30 seconds with 24 FPS, 480 for 20 seconds, and 720 for 30 seconds. I've used the replacement techniques with the terracotta codfish in different sizes, along with the real natural effects of the rocks and the fabric seaweed, which I've used the craft knife to cut around the outlines that I've used with a marker pen to go along with the blue colored cards within the background. Although the best quality that I've exported was 720p, which was the original HD format. I've used the LED lighting to turn the color into blue to white light, from bright white to red. I also find it all straightforward, as I would figure out what to do with the LED lighting with the RGB setting of the different colors to choose from. I also find setting up the camera straightforward too, like I had trouble on setting up the aperture and focus at first, and even setting it from movie mode to picture mode. After I finished the film altogether, I've used Premiere Pro to edit all the clips into a 30-second animation, which includes a few seconds of a title screen and end credits. Throughout this whole thing, there isn't any music in it at all. I've used free sound on post-production post-production to add sound effects and ambience such as the underwater ocean, a calm beach with calm waves, fish fins that flap, the bubbles of what would come from the fish's mouth, and even a dark, gritty fire noise for the dystopian forest. For voice recording, the equipment that I used was the Zoom H6, and I've used it to make my own voices for the fish. I would have experimented more materials in the final cut, and add more special effects of water out of paper, or add plastic foil wrap to create the effects of water, or even plasticine of water rings for a sequence. Not to mention adding sequin buttons for the fish scales from a shirt. Back onto Premiere Pro, as I was aiming my shot to be at full HD at 1080p, I've used the footage I've animated to make the film look energetic as the fish, along with adding the title screen and end credits to show who animated and edited this. I find manipulating the sound effects straightforward. Whilst I was adding the sound effects, I even manipulated the voices to make it look high pitch as well. And that's how I felt when making the life of a terracotta codfish as real but entertaining at the same time as possible. See how the forces of nature play out within this 30-second animation within a small world of real objects and colored card papers.